Hello and welcome. This is On Screen, Off Screen, coming at you January 8th, day of record. Just a regular episode for you guys today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Konlin, what do you want to talk about today?
Okay, first thing I wanted to talk about was Giblet Hill. It is kind of a cool story. So there was an Irish researcher at their main library in Ireland, and he comes across this book. He starts reading it, and he recognizes the language patterns from being from about the time of Bram Stoker. He does some more research and finds out that it is a Bram Stoker book that has completely gone missing from history, and he brings it back to the main front of human knowledge, human psychology, and it gets published absolutely everywhere. So he records a version and he puts it on YouTube. And for the first time in about 100 years, we have a new Bram Stoker book that he wrote before he wrote Dracula. I listened to it, and it's a short book. You can listen to it in like 45 minutes. It's really, really good. It's about a man who you don't know if he's a ghost or if he witnessed a murder, and it's kind of a mystery between the two. Very well written, and you can kind of see that it was a avenue for him to be able to practice his craft and eventually write Dracula. I really liked it, and I thought it was a cool story.
That does sound really cool. It's always interesting when weird stuff like that kind of happens. I will have to look that up. 45-minute book will probably take me a few days, honestly, with how short of chunks I usually listen in. But that's really cool.
I just listened to it on double speed. Not a big deal at all.
No, not everybody can handle double speed. I'm usually a 1.25 kind of person.
Double speed's the best.
Nah, double speed is too fast. I just like to get rid of the big gaps. They're like talking speed doesn't bother me, but like the big gaps usually get me. So that's why I do 1.25, just so that you don't notice that as much.
That makes complete sense. Kind of even it out a little bit, right?
Yeah. Plus, when you go like too fast, it changes the pitch and tone of the voice a lot. You know, I don't want to listen to Alvin and the Chipmunks read my books to me. I like to listen to a person read my books to me. So that also plays a part in it.
I kind of get used to it. And when I go back to a normal speed, how it's supposed to be read, it drives me absolutely nuts. I literally can't do it.
Yeah, I mean that's what's gonna happen when you get to the point where you're speeding through them that fast, you know. But for me, I haven't gotten to 2x speed, save for there was like a couple of books I listened to where the narrator was just particularly slow and boring. The books that like are really hard to get through, go 2x on those because they're really hard to get through and a lot of the information you can miss anyway. So, yeah. But 1.25 is my sometimes 1.5. That I float between the two.
There's sometimes where I slow down to 1.5, but otherwise I'm just going. All right, dude. What is your first one?
The first thing I want to talk about is last week I made a statement that I would like to correct. I said that The Princess Bride was the only 10 out of 10 movie out there.
Okay.
And I would like to correct my statement. There are 3 10 out of 10 movies: The Princess Bride, Klaus, and The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse.
Those are all great.
Yeah. So I was thinking about my definition of a 10 out of 10 movie, meaning it's a perfect movie. You can't change. You wouldn't change anything to it. Its casting is perfect. The direction was perfect. 2 of these are animated. The art direction is very different on both of them, yet I would not change a single thing on either one of them. And all 3 of these are movies that are on my watch yearly list. So for those reasons, I decided I should correct my statement and say that there are actually 3 10 out of 10 movies in existence.
You don't think Lord of the Rings is a 10 out of 10?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to look up The Boy, the Mole, The Fox and the Horse. I think I've seen it, but I honestly don't know.
I've told you to watch it previously. It is actually what made me think about this as I rewatched it. It's on Apple TV. It's an animated version of a children's book.
You have told me to watch this.
Its art style is like a painting. It is absolutely gorgeous. The music is perfect. The storytelling elements is amazing. And it speaks to this is how I phrased it to somebody else I was telling to watch it recently, was it speaks to my specific flavor of depression very well. Because everybody kind of experiences that very differently. And this one just has a lot. It's only 45 minutes, but it has so many great messages for depression and stuff like that. Like there's this fox, right? And he tries to attack the boy and the mole, but he can't get to him, so he runs off and he gets caught in a snare. And then the boy and the mole are traveling onwards, right, into the forest, and they find the fox that's stuck. And the mole gets brave and starts to approach the fox, and the fox lunges at him and says, "You come any closer and I'll kill you." And the mole says, "If you stay in that snare, you'll die." And
That's
so
cool.
the fox lets down its guard and, lets the mole loosen it, right? And so the fox ends up just like kind of following along the boy and the mole through the journey. And there's a part where the horse comes in and the boy says, the fox doesn't say much. And the horse says, "I know, but isn't it a blessing that he's here? Anyways,
That's cool.
It's got so many good things. There's a part where the mole says, or the boy asks, "What's the bravest thing you've ever done?" And the mole says, I asked for help." Like, this is just 45 minutes, and I'm only giving you 3 of the many great messages that are in this short movie. It's absolutely amazing. It's a 10 out of 10. Princess Bride is a 10 out of 10. And Klaus is a 10 out of 10. Like,
I don't really believe in 10 out of 10s, and I'd be tempted to give Klaus a 10 out of 10 because I can't think of anything I would change about it. But I think there's always something that can be better. I really don't know what it'd be. I even said it was perfect.
It's hard to get to that perfect spot, right? But, there's always room for growth and improvement in like a person or something. But I think very rarely you get pieces of artwork that could not be any better. Movies are a form of art. There are 3. And I mean this wholly, like in existence.
3.
3. Out of every movie that I've seen in my entire life, and I believe that I haven't seen in my entire life, there's very few perfect things. And like, if we're talking about Klaus, right? Could the animation have been done better?
No.
Could the writing have been done any better? I don't think so. I think every line in that is perfect. And I think the fact that you would say you watch it even not during Christmas time because it just makes you feel good is evidence of that.
It's a big deal.
Right? Plot, perfect. Casting, perfect. Right? There's not a single weak link. There's not something that's like when we were talking about Wicked, how I wish that Elphaba was just a little bit better of a casting. Not saying she was a bad casting, but they could have done a little bit better. She's good, not great. And I wish they would have gone with great. but that's okay, right?
Everyone does a great job in Klaus. Everyone.
Everyone does a great job. Animation is perfect. If they said, hey, we're going to do a remastered version of Klaus, I would say, how? How are you possibly going to make that look or feel any better than it already does? I mean, that's the beautiful thing about animation, is that it stands the test. Right? No matter how long it's been out. Recently, I started watching Danny Phantom, and I sent Lauren, our animation friend, a message, and I was like, whatever happened to animation like this? Because, yeah, it's square. It doesn't support widescreen. It has all this stuff, but it still looks amazing because it's animation. And so that's the way Klaus is. Music in Klaus. Could it have been any better? I don't think so. It was perfect. So it's a 10 out of 10. The boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. Same thing. I think the music was perfect. It's kind of more like a subtle thing. It's not something that like jumps out to you, but I think it perfectly matches the tone of that story. I think the casting for it is perfect. I think it's an animated 45-minute film of a children's book. So there's not really a lot to screw up there, but they still nailed it. It's absolutely amazing. I would highly, highly, highly recommend everybody watch it. In fact, I would put this on the everybody should see this in their life kind of thing. Because it's only 45 minutes of your time.
Wouldn't all of these be
so
on that
great.
if they're all 10s out of 10s?
No.
Okay.
No.
Explain.
Yeah. So Klaus, right? We are Americans. We have a American culture and the outlook on Santa and Christ and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It is very impactful to you and I because of the background that we have with Christmas and all that kind of stuff. Not everybody has that, and it's not going to hit that nail on as closely, right? So Remember the Titans is one of my everybody should watch at least once in their life kind of thing. Because of the historical, To Kill a Mockingbird, because of the historical impact that had. And that's an important message for everybody to hear, whether they're American or not. Right? Yes, it's going to hit better for those American cultured people, but it's not like bad messaging for other people to hear or something that they can't relate to at all. Everywhere has dealt with prejudice and racism and all that kind of stuff.
I actually don't know this. I don't know if you know this. Do Chinese people, African people, do they celebrate Santa?
It probably would depend on what religion you're a part of. Like, Santa was a Coca-Cola invention, essentially. Right, I sent you that little thing. So Santa itself is a very American thing.
But you have Saint Nick in Europe. There's different mythology behind it, but there's a similarity. Yeah. And I think that they would be able to get Klaus. I just don't know if Chinese people have a Santa connection.
I'm sure they have their version of Santa. I don't know if I doubt it's the same version.
Yeah, I wonder if it's close enough that they would be able to celebrate that movie and enjoy it.
Yeah, so Santa Claus is known as Shangdan Lorin. Sorry for that pronunciation, it's probably terrible. Literally meaning Old Christmas Man in Chinese, and his gift giving is well known in China. Many young Chinese enjoy Christmas parties with their friends and exchange gifts. Like, cool. I know Christmas is like a global thing, along with the rise in Christianity, 50 to 100 years ago. Like World War II, everybody stopped to celebrate Christmas, right? But I'm sure that the celebrations and the actual impact of it is very different. I don't know about Klaus specifically, if that would necessarily hit its nail on the head, but like ultimately it's an entertainment thing. So like because Klaus is not saying anything important, like To Kill a Mockingbird or Remember the Titans speaks to racism and prejudice, or The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse speaks so well about mental illness that that's why you should put that on your list. Klaus is a feel good,
But doesn't Klaus say a lot about change and becoming something more and what it takes to do that? And I mean, that's part of the reason why I love the movie so much, is because all of these different messages that are integral to the plot.
They are, but those are also messages that you get from 99% of other plots. Not in the same way. You don't necessarily get the same mixture. So I had this conversation last night about Star Citizen. Is somebody was telling me that, like, if I want to play a space exploration game, I can play one that works. If I want to play a first-person shooter, I can play one that works, right? That's true. What you can't get is this unique concoction that is Star Citizen, where you get to do all of the above, right? That's the way Klaus is too. So with those messages, yes, they are perfect in this movie. Yes, they are. It's amazing. It is so powerful. But it's not like a message that you can't get from other places, right? Can you tell me another movie that talks about racism so well as Remember the Titans or To Kill a Mockingbird?
That's a good question.
There's lots of movies that talk about racism. There's lots of movies that talk about prejudice, right? But these ones are so impactful historically and uniquely powerfully that it works. Like Glory is a phenomenal movie that talks about racism, but it's not on my everybody should watch in their life because it is so uniquely American.
I mean, do World War II movies against Jews count?
That would depend on what you mean by that.
Because, like, Schindler's List, I would say, does that pretty freaking well.
I have not seen Schindler's List.
Okay, that one's super impactful.
And I would probably, I know enough about it. I would say that you should probably watch that in your life. Like, I'm very excited to get to that one. It is on IMDb's top 100. It is on my list for this year to watch. I'm excited to get to it.
But yeah, anyway, what the movies that you're bringing up are definitely high up there for sure.
Yeah. And I would highly, highly recommend Klaus. But if somebody came to me and said, hey, you know what? Like, Christmas and Santa's not really my thing. I don't, animation really isn't my thing. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, that's okay. You live your own life. But if somebody came up to me and said, I'm not going to watch a sports movie because I recommended Remember the Titans, I'd get pretty upset because it's more than a sports movie, I'd be like, no, you need to watch this movie at least once. Pull out your phone and play a game. Watch it passively. I don't care, but you should watch this movie. You should watch To Kill a Mockingbird or read the book or both. You should watch The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Just because it's so, and I might very well be super prejudiced about The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, because like I said, it speaks very uniquely to my flavor of depression. But my argument to that is just because not everybody experiences depression the same way I do, having the recognition that this is how I experience it lets you have empathy, or at least know how to treat people who experience it like I do.
That's very cool. That's one of my arguments for Ted Lasso and the episode with Beard. A lot of people don't like that episode.
It's a terrible episode.
It hit me hard, and I don't understand how people don't like that episode
Because it feels like an acid trip. You say it represents depression,
I
and
do.
right, you might connect with it, and I think that's very important for me to understand as your friend that you connect with it that way. But me watching it, who doesn't express or doesn't feel depression that way, it feels like an episode that doesn't fit in the show. It feels like an episode where Beard gets high and we experience his acid trip with him.
And then that's
which is not the kind of feeling in the show. The show is not about drugs. It's not like it's so out of the blue. Like that's why I don't like it, right? It on its own, if you were to just say, "Hey, watch this episode because it shows my depression," I'd be like, "Okay, cool." But because we're watching Ted Lasso, the show about, Ted and his fight with anxiety and depression and, positivity and how it impacts the culture around you. And then you have this offshoot where it's just Beard and this group of fans going on an acid trip and then back to the regular stuff. It's kind of, I think, why people don't like it.
It just doesn't feel like it meshes.
Yeah. It feels like an outside episode of the show. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I can actually understand that point of view. I'm wondering, with my really connecting with that episode, does that make that episode better to you? Because it sounds like Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse would be considered higher because it connects with you so well, right?
It doesn't change my perspective on the episode in pertaining to the actual series.
Okay.
Like, I have been rewatching Ted Lasso passively recently, and I skipped that episode. And I would continue to, next time I watch it, I would skip that episode.
Fair enough.
But if there was a point in time where it was like, hey, I'm feeling kind of depressed, I might watch that episode to figure out how best to treat you.
Cool.
Right. So it's a different kind of thing. It wouldn't say like, it doesn't change my feeling that it's a bad Ted Lasso episode, because it is. But it doesn't mean it can't be its own thing.
It could be a good episode, but not a good Ted Lasso episode.
Yeah. Yeah. If that episode was pulled out of the series and just bonus content, like, hey, here's this Beard special episode, I bet everybody would have loved it.
But it was because it was in the show, and you're like, oh, we have to wait till next week and we watch this. Why do we watch this?
Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't add to the overall plot at all. It doesn't progress the story. It's got no real character development. It helps you understand Beard a little bit better. But it's not like the rest of the series where, you're seeing all these characters develop and change and do things. And, it's Beard's acid trip. So
I was going to bring up, since you do like the Boy, the Mole, this is kind of different. It's not as much depression, but I think you would find it beautiful. There's a show on Apple TV called Wolfwalkers.
It's on my list. I'm about to start it.
It's very good. You will like it a lot. All right, man.
Yeah. What do you got for us?
Beetlejuice 2. Beetlejuice. I heard a lot of really negative things about this movie when it first came out, and I don't really get it. I've
heard nothing but good things.
Really, I have not heard good things. I thought it was really good. I think, what is her name? She's in a bunch of stuff. Beetlejuice. The main actress, Jenna Ortega, does a fantastic job and feels exactly like Winona Ryder's daughter. Like, the relationship feels really concrete. Michael Keaton does a really good job as Beetlejuice. He feels like the character. He feels like he just steps into those shoes. I think they expanded upon the world in an interesting way. I like spending time in the underworld undead area, and how they built upon that, I thought was really well done. Everything feels like you just went back to the 80s movie. The decorations, the cinematography, everything just feels like you got pulled right back. It has that comedy. I don't love a lot of Tim Burton's stuff, but he does a really good job of going back to who he was before and really connecting you with the past. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. It's for me, it was pretty close to the first one. Like I really liked it.
Okay, so how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Like 7.3, right
Okay,
around there.
so you are actually lower than the scores on it.
Really?
Yeah, the the fans on Tomatoes put it as an 8 out of 10, a 79%. Tomato Meter put it as a 76. IMDb has it as a 6.7. Metacritic has it as a 62%. So it seems like you're right along the lines of just about everybody else. Seems like fans probably liked it a little bit more than you, critics a little less than you, but you seem to be right in there.
Okay, cool. I was not getting that representation. I think it's really good.
Yeah, when it came out, all my social media feed, I have not seen Beetlejuice. I don't plan to see Beetlejuice.
I was going to ask that.
All of my stuff was just Jenna Ortega's amazingness. Like, that's
really
all my feed was when she first came out. When any of her stuff really comes out, it seems to be what my feed becomes. I don't think I've really seen anything she's been in because I didn't watch Wednesday.
I liked Wednesday too.
Haven't seen Scream.
She does a good job.
Didn't watch You. I guess she's in Iron Man 3. I've seen that.
I didn't realize she was in that.
I'm sure it's a minor role. Insidious Chapter 2. That was an okay movie. Apparently she's in that. So, yeah, that's literally it. So I have no opinions on Jenna Ortega at all.
At least she's good.
But, yeah. So, everybody seems to love her. It's totally fair.
Do you want to watch Beetlejuice, or do you not have any interest in the first one?
I don't have any interest.
Okay. Why?
If I were to watch Beetlejuice, it would be Beetlejuice the Musical Broadway.
Okay. It's really good.
And only because there's a song in it. I don't remember right now, but there's a song that is just an absolute awesome song. And knowing nothing else really about it would get me to go to the theater to see it. But as for the movie, no, it's very Tim Burton-esque. It's very not my thing. So,
what Tim Burton movies have you actually watched?
A lot of them. Tim Burton. See, I have seen Nightmare Before Christmas. Think it's super overrated. Edward Scissorhands. Didn't like it. Sleepy Hollow. I didn't like. Sweeney Todd. I hated it. I liked it. And then I hated it. And then I was like, why did I keep watching it? I hated it. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I think, is a little underrated. But still was not great. Frankenweenie's okay. Batman is terrible. Batman Returns is terrible. 9, surprisingly, was really good. I think that's a really underrated one. James the Giant Peach, I didn't like. Let's see. My favorite of his films is Corpse Bride.
Corpse Bride is very good.
2010's Alice in Wonderland is pretty good.
It's underrated.
But most of his stuff I haven't liked. And a lot of his stuff I think is super overrated. Mostly Nightmare Before Christmas.
I think mostly Edward Scissorhands. I don't understand why people like that movie. I really don't like it at all. But
I don't
like
either,
some of
but
his
it's
other
not
stuff.
shoved in your face like Nightmare Before Christmas is.
That's true. My Nightmare has stayed popular longer.
I personally know 5 people with Nightmare Before Christmas tattoos, permanently
Wow.
branded themselves with Jack or the girl or the whatever. I know 0 people who have permanently branded themselves with Edward Scissorhands.
Me either. That's wild. That's wild that you know that many
Yeah.
people that have done that.
It's super, super popular, and it's fine. I don't hate the movie, but it's a fine movie. It is not worth permanently scarring yourself with it, or
No, not at
watching
all.
it every year, or like it. If it were me, it would kind of be a forgotten movie right now.
That's how I would be
But
too.
it is what it is. But
Beetlejuice is among his better movies, in my opinion. I like it, but also Sid, my wife, she hates this movie. I made her watch it once, and she told me she'll never watch it again. She hates it. But
I
like,
don't blame her. I've seen enough of it to know that Michael Keaton is just uncomfortable, and I don't want to watch it. I know that's kind of like he's supposed to be as part of his character, but still does not make it me want to watch it. So
fair enough, man.
oh,
All right. What is your next one?
all right, my topic recommended to you by you last week. This is my one and only movie that I say that I wish I could have been in the writer's room for with this one. It ends with us. You sold me on it. I gotta be honest, I don't think it lived quite up to your hype
Okay.
of it, and think you oversold it just a little bit. But why I think I should have been in the writer's room is specifically for the first time he hits her. There's like this, usually in a lot of situations when you're talking about like SA or physical abuse or whatever, there's like this gradual inclination of it, right? It's not this like 0 to 10 thing overnight, because it's the toad in boiling water, right?
Yeah.
If they just like dropped you into the boiling water, you would just get the out. So the first time that he hits her, I really don't like it because they were celebrating him just before it happens, right? So it feels like this super emotional, irrational, wild 0 to 10 flip of a switch for a person. And that to me would make anybody's warning bells go off high. And so I wish I could have been in the writer's room to be like, okay, hold on. We cannot be celebrating this dude, this admittedly very toxic, terrible person. They've already established that. We cannot put him in the environment where he is completely in control and being celebrated and everything's about him, to him being abusive, because anybody would freak out at that and leave, right? So what we need to do is change the environment. So what I would do if I were in that writer's room would be like, we need to take a small step back here and make it not such a 0 to 10, or we have to change the message that is being told, right? So, for example, let's say she passively brought up the ex-boyfriend as like oh, hey, my ex-boyfriend and I used to do X, Y, and Z, and I think that would be really fun. Right. And then he questions her about, what about, when was the last time you saw him? Where's this coming from? You know, you really haven't talked to him before, right? To then escalating to him hitting her after touching the hot pan. Because what that does is give her a reason to blame herself. Right? Because that's what so often happens in these abuse situations is the girl goes, oh, it was my fault. I said the wrong thing, or I did the wrong thing, or whatever. And in this situation, we're celebrating him. He goes to touch a hot pan, and she says, hey, let me grab a oven mitt. That pan is hot. And he hits her. Right? The second one, where he throws her down the stairs, is so much better done with a different reason. I don't like it because it doesn't feel like abuse at that point to me.
Even with the it from a different view at the end?
Right. Yeah. Because what you have is them having an argument, him getting away from that argument, and her not letting him. And to me, it didn't look like he pushed her. It looked like he was moving her. You know?
That's what I thought at first. It's one of the things that I liked about it. Because I actually had these arguments inside my own head, is if that really is abuse. And a lot of people who are in abusive situations do reframe their abuse when they actually come through it honestly. And she does that at the very end. That's why you get the different camera view, which is what kind of sold me for the movie. I really liked that piece. But it went from, that looked like she just trying to get away, and he's actually trying to do something healthy because he's not in control of himself, to pushing it over the edge.
Right. But even with that different camera view, it's not like he pushed her.
Yeah, he did.
No, he scooted her.
Looks a lot more like he pushed her to me.
It
looks like he grabbed her and literally dropped her down the stairs.
No, like even when they do the other angle, to me it looked like he was just sliding her aside. Something that 99% of humans would do.
Yeah, that's what I thought
when they were being followed like that, right? It's borderline, I admit, but it's not outright clearly just pushing her down the stairs for pushing her down the stairs to try and hurt her.
So you think it would have been better if with the other camera view, it looked more straightforward, like throw her directly?
Yeah, if his hands were actually pushing her towards the bottom of the stairs and not him skirting her.
Okay. I did not.
Because he kind of does this,
that's fair.
I'm in a skirt around you, and she falls down the stairs. Right? If the first angle was him skirting her, and then when she realizes, no, he pushed me, and they show him pushing her, I would think about it differently. But because they used the same shot just from different angles, him skirting her is still just him skirting her.
Instead of feeling like it was pushing her. I still felt like it was actually getting pushed.
Yeah. See, that was just my perspective on it. It's still a good movie, and it is still very important, and I'm not trying to downplay it at all or say that that's not valid or that the writers did anything different. I just think that if I had been in the writer's room,
you could have
to say, hey, let's
a little bit.
I think I could have taken it from being a 7 to a 9 in terms of quality of movie, just with those few small changes I would make.
Interesting. Just because what you're bringing up is very, very small.
Yeah.
Overall, it really is.
Yeah.
I don't, the pan thing, I can kind of see where you're coming from. I think he is a character that just has these big explosions. He goes from very charming, very suave, simple, to literally just losing his shit. And he does it over and over and over again with the movie. So I'm kind of okay with that. She's in love with him. They've been together for months. I think it's fine. I think people actually do that. They've been in love for months, and then all of a sudden he just kind of snaps, and then I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, I snapped. I think people do that when they have rage problems, when they have mental illness issues. They just kind of flip on a dime. Not everybody, but I think there are people that do. And I think they did a good job with that. I can see where you're coming from with the punch being too abrupt. I really like the stare scene a lot. I actually don't have a problem with it.
I disagree just a little bit.
Okay.
Because every time he snaps, there's something that leads up to it. He never just snaps, except in that scene.
That's a very good point.
Right. There's always something to upset him.
But in that one, he just burns his hand, and then all of a sudden he's angry instead of some other trigger that works with his mental problems.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying just that small change where we're not celebrating him necessarily, because he would have been, right? He's a very, it starts with an N, very selfish.
Narcissistic.
He's a very narcissistic person. So when you're making that narcissistic person the theme, the entire purpose of your day, they're going to be reveling in it, right? So you're taking him in that environment where it's all about him to just snapping like that. I don't really connect with it.
You could have had her, it could have been something as simple as he was struggling a little bit and she's getting after him to figure something out, or it doesn't even need to be that big of a deal. Just something so it's more negative towards him instead of being positive. So he has these little annoyances that are building up, and then he burns his hand, and then all of a sudden, like, boom.
Yeah, because burning your hand sucks. I totally get how somebody would be like angry at that.
Yeah.
But when you go from 10 on a happy scale to having something that upset, like, and you go to a -10 that fast, I don't care that she's been in a relationship with him for weeks or months at that point. She would have alarm bells going off, and she never does the thing where she's like, hey, this concerned me.
I'm actually, because I think her character is very focused on keeping the relationship alive and a little bit delusional. I think it's written well that way. I don't have a problem with her side of things. I don't actually agree with that. But him going from being celebrated to punching her is a very fair criticism.
Right, but it's only because of her perspective, right? Do I believe that people would get that angry and that violent at just burning their hands? Yes.
Yeah.
Right, that is a thing that people do. But the reaction to that from another person, in this case her, she would be like, holy crap, that scared me. What else is this guy gonna do? Right? And even if it was just a small scene where she was talking to another character and said, man, this thing really scared me, but it was just an accident, that also would change my perspective on the scene. But the fact that she doesn't have that moment where alarm bells were clearly would have been going off, that's what I hate about that scene particularly.
But if you really were so delusional to believe that, like we see it in the first time, you burn your hand and he just kind of flings back and hits her. If that's really how you thought, I don't even know if you'd have alarm bells. It was just, oh, he burned his hand and it was a mistake.
And hit me?
Just flipped it up.
He turns. He didn't do this. He turns and hits her. Right? So it's a very...
But it looks like he's just trying to get away from the fire. Because the fire's right here. He puts his hand in the pan, then... That's how it looks like from the original point of view. And if she really thought that's all it was, would there be that many alarm bells?
Yes, because it's going from a +10 to a -10 that fast. That's my point. It's not that him doing that is unrealistic, because it is. It's definitely realistic. It is, however, enough to, like, say, hey, this is concerning. His emotional reaction is concerning.
But I, as an audience member, wrote it off. when I first watched it, I was like, oh, he just burned his hand. No big deal. Like, she was just getting away. I kind of like, he shouldn't have hit her, but it looked completely like an accident to me. Like 100%.
I don't think so at all, because when you touch something hot, you do this. You don't do this.
I mean, it matters how hot. If you like burn yourself, you try to get away from it as fast as you
don't
can.
do this. Yeah, you pull back. You might jump back, but you're not going to twist your body and close your fist. And even if he didn't hit her, his emotional state is what's the concerning thing. Right? She should be concerned by the fact that he got so angry, not because he hit her, possibly by accident.
But people get that angry about little stuff all the time. Like, even people who don't have problems, they get into traffic and somebody cuts them off, and some people become raging psychopaths, like absolute crazy people, the nicest people you've ever met in your life. And all of a sudden they're like, that piece of like, they go wild. And from when I first watched it, it really looked like, you're kind of right. You wouldn't twist. You would just kind of back up. They probably could have filmed that a little bit better, to where if he did just back up and it kind of just looked like he was flinging his arms back, but really he had his fist to punch her in the face or something. You probably could have done something that way. But people get that angry about little stuff all the time. The stuff where they don't even get hurt. Somebody just cut in front of them in line.
Okay, so let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
That road rage situation where it's the nicest person you've ever met, do you believe it is ever just the cutoff in traffic?
No.
Exactly my point. It is always, there is more going on than meets the eye. And like I said, this is a day that they're celebrating him. He's narcissistic. It's all about him. He's on cloud 9 right now. He's getting all the love, all the affection, all the words of affirmation, all the physical touch, all the acts of service. She's cooking for him. Everything is about him. He's on cloud 9. And then he snaps like that. That is my point, is that it goes from positive 10, this is a perfect day for me, to absolute negative 10. I'm going to hit somebody. I'm so angry. Right? It's not that he hits her. It's not that he twists while he punches, even though I still think that that's
from positive
dumb.
to completely
It's
negative.
That he goes from positive to completely negative. So she would have alarm bells going off. Like I said, she could write off the hitting her. It was just an accident. She should have that moment in a conversation where she just admits that it scared her a little bit, and that changes the tone. But because she's just like, oh, hitting me was an accident, she doesn't even bring up the fact that he...
Or she could have just mentioned it in passing to the sister.
Yeah. So either change the environment to where it's not all about him and he's on cloud 9, right? Let's say it was just like a 5 today, and he was just excited for his surgery, and things were going pretty well. That's a very different environment than what actually just happened, right? So that's why I just say, like, I wish I could have been in the writer's room, because I think
a couple little
with
tweaks.
those couple little tweaks could have improved it so much. And I think a lot more people would have been like, wow, rather than this movie is a good movie that talks about abuse, would go to a movie that's like, hey, this really represents it, and everybody should watch it so that they can be warned and be aware.
And understand.
Right.
Good argument, man.
Like I said, I've been pretty negative about it. I'm not trying to say it's a bad movie. It is a very good movie. It is extremely well done. I do love the camera shots being different, and giving you a better perspective, or different perspective on things. I think the writing is done extremely well. I think all the actors did extremely well. It's just a couple little tweaks that I think could have taken it from being, like I said, I would say it's a 7 out of 10. It's a pretty dang good movie.
Solid movie.
Yeah, solid movie. But I think I could have bumped it up just a little bit by saying, hey guys, let's reel it back just a little bit right here so that we can push it further on, right? That way we can make the stair push even more impactful because we only did it a little bit here. So this is where she can accept the bigger thing happening.
It's a good thought, man. That's a good point of view.
But that is it for this episode. Like, subscribe, let us know your thoughts. Let me know how wrong I am. That's totally fine. There is a possibility that I could be wrong because I knew because of our previous conversation that it was about abuse. Maybe that changed my thoughts on it. I don't know. Let me know. Thanks for listening.
See you guys.